Hey guys, Jacob here. This is going to be covering my sniper build for TU6. I was going to make one of these back in TU5, but I just did not really get around to do it, and I wasn't using snipers that much, and I was mostly running the raid trying to get the Eagle Bear and farming for other pieces of gear, and some of these pieces did not exist at the time, so I could not really make them. But this is a build based on the Vigilance M1A build I made a while back. If you guys are not familiar with, I did upload that a few weeks ago, but that's what this build is based on. You guys will see the pieces are very similar to the M1A, almost kind of exact. Only a few pieces have been flipped and they've been rolled a little bit differently. But the Survivalist is not the go-to specialization on this build. It's the Sharpshooter. Most people know that I run Survivalist, but I'm running Sharpshooter on this build due to the fact you want to get a little bit more headshot damage out of your marksman rifle damage, and you get a little bit of weapon stability for your other gun. But the primary I'm using is the classic M44. If you don't want to use a high-end sniper, you can always use something like the exotic Nemesis, which is hitting really hard base damage wise, and that's not even charging it up. So this gun will pretty much just demolish everything in its path, but you can use this. So if you want to base this build on this gun, you can, but I'm trying to base it on a little bit more on the M44 or some kind of high-end sniper rifle due to the fact that I've been trying to use these a little bit more. The base damage on this, for me, is 198.4k. That's the damage from all the mods I have, and also the weapon damage roll, stuff like that. I am using Ranger, which is every 5 meters you are from the target grants you 2% weapon damage. So it's really nice because you are going to be sniping a little bit further away from your targets. And Extra, which is 20% magazine capacity, and Everlasting while holstered in cover. This weapon regenerates 2 ammo every 5 seconds. So while you're in cover and this weapon is holstered, you'll actually get ammo because it regenerates 2 ammo every 5 seconds. The mods I'm using on this is the CQB SS scope, 8 times for 30% headshot damage. You can always change this to crit if you really want to. If you guys don't want to aim down a scope, you can always put the Rugged Mini or the Russian Red Dot. For the muzzle, there's no muzzle on this, which does kind of suck. I'm using the laser pointer for crit chance, and that's pretty much it for the laser pointer and the scope. And I'm using the stiff integrated 5% weapon damage, which you can always change to reload speed if you guys want to reload this weapon a little bit faster. The magazine is only 6, so you want to kind of make your shots count, but you are going to be hitting really hard with this gun. Now, the secondary can be pretty much whatever you want. So if you want to run dual sniper, you could run the Nemesis and run the M44, but I recommend running something a little bit higher RPM, or something you could put out a little bit more damage with, and that's why I run the Eagle Bear, due to the fact if someone's in your face, you're going to have a little bit of trouble trying to shoot them with a sniper rifle, because that's going to be a little bit difficult because you have a scope on it, but it's nice to run something like a P416, an Eagle Bear, or even an LMG or an SMG. That way you have a little bit of RPM and you can burn someone there right in your face. But I recommend using an assault rifle, something like the FAMAS, or one of these two right here. That way you have pretty decent RPM and pretty decent damage. Now, the sidearm is the Orbit pistol as usual. I use this a lot. The fact it has perfect finisher. Swapping from this weapon within 10 seconds of killing an enemy grants 40% crit chance and 50% crit damage for 15 seconds. And it does require 4 or less utility, so it's pretty easy to unlock if you're running a DPS style build. Optimized for weapon handling and overlap, which is one of the main reasons I use this to get 5% extra weapon handling. And the mods on this, if you guys really care, are the 20% reload speed, drum, and the 10% damage to elite low reflex sight. Now to the gear, I am using 3-piece DNH. I'll go over the mask first. The brand set bonuses you're going to get from this is 5% accuracy, 10% crit damage, and 7% crit chance. You have 23,000 health and 6.5 crit chance rolled on the mask. I've been trying to get a higher mask, but for some reason I cannot get one that has a higher crit roll. I've even tried rolling them, and the highest I've got is 7%, and that's literally it. Concussion, headshot grants 15% headshot damage for 2 seconds, 5 seconds with marksman rifles. So since I'm using a marksman rifle, I get headshots grant 15% headshot damage. So when you shoot someone, you're going to be able to proc that due to the fact you have a marksman rifle, and it'll get a little bit longer. This does require 7 or more offensive. Like if you're using Berserk, it requires the same amount to unlock this. Now to the backpack, you're going to get 13% crit chance I've rolled on here, 16,000 health with 4.5 weapon damage, harden, and spark. Damaging enemies with skills or explosives grants 15% weapon damage for 15 seconds. And with harden, you're going to get 15% extra armor. And the offensive mod on here is a marksman rifle damage mod with SMG and weapon damage. I don't have that many marksman rifle damage mods, so this build was a little bit tricky to make. The fact I had to farm and try to get as many marksman rifle mods as I could to actually make this build possible and make it work. Next are going to be the knee pads, which have 8.5 crit chance on them, and composure while in cover grants 10% total weapon damage. So while you're in cover, you'll be able to get 10% weapon damage on top of something like if you have spark procced, so you're getting way more weapon damage on top of your gun. Now, to the gear set pieces, I'm using aces and eights for the requirements, which is 2. I'm using the holster and the gloves to get the 10% marksman rifle damage. You could always use 3-piece Araldi if you want to get more marksman rifle damage, but I'm actually just using the 2-piece for the aces and eights since it's a little bit easier. And on this, you have marksman rifle damage and crit hit chance. And on here, I have a marksman rifle and assault rifle damage mod because I have pretty much no marksman rifle damage mods, but this does work because I do use an assault rifle as well. Aces and eights holster, which has 4% marksman rifle damage, LMG damage, and weapon damage, and I have a crit chance and crit hit damage mod to get a little more crit out of the sniper rifle. Now to the chest piece, this is going to be the perfect Vigilance, pristine example chest piece, which is an Araldi Holdings drop. You can acquire by farming loot allocation areas for this. Mostly people farm this for this in the DZ when it's Araldi, so if you want it, I'd go in there and just farm for it and try to get it. This one has 10% accuracy, because the brand set bonus 1, 29,000 health with 15% weapon damage, and perfect vigilance is 30% weapon damage. Taking damage disables this buff for 4 seconds. So while you guys are using this talent, I'd recommend sending in the back a little bit and hitting people from a distance due to the fact you are using a sniper rifle. But you can use this medium range because if people do hit you, you're still going to have a decent amount of damage to be able to drop people. But if you can sit back and use this to your advantage, you will just mop people up all day long. Now, to the skills, I'm using the Striker Drone, and that's to proc Spark. So while you're fighting someone and this is flying around and hitting them, you'll be able to proc Spark over and over and over again, and that will give you an extra 15% damage, like it says right here, for 15 seconds. But since it's always going around, it's constantly going to be hitting the target, and it's always going to be proccing over and over again. That way you're getting that 15% extra damage. So if you're in cover and you're using something like Composure and Spark, you're going to be getting damage on top of damage, essentially. So you're going to be having Composure for 10%, and you're also going to be getting the 15% weapon damage from Spark, which is really nice. That's also not counting if you're in cover and you have, say, Composure proc with Vigilance, and you can combine all these together and essentially combine it with your weapon damage and just hit people from a distance and just hit them like crazy and flat out destroy them. Now, the next thing on the list is going to be the Reinforcer Chem Launcher. Due to the fact you're not using Survivalists, you're going to need some kind of heal. And if you want to avoid this, you could always use something like the Fixer Drone if you really want to, and use Seekers to activate Spark. But most people use this to keep their health up. Now, I'll go into the stats so you guys can see exactly what's on the weapons. These are all the weapon talents. You can see the PvP damage 109,092, 198,350 weapon damage, 55 crit chance, and 49 crit damage. You can get this way higher if you have a little bit better rolls, and you have 193% headshot damage. So if you shoot someone in the head while you have all these talents procced, you're pretty much just going to mop them on the floor. That's not counting if you're running something like the Nemesis with this build, which is literally insane because the base damage is already 500,000, and you're using that plus on top of the charge that you're going to be hitting the person with. And if you really just want to kill people all day long, you can use the Nemesis, but I like using the M44 a little bit more due to the fact that I can fire off a little bit more rounds and hit people a little bit quicker than using the Nemesis. Now I'll go into some of the bonuses. You guys will see he's assault rifle damage bonus, all weapon damage bonus. Marksman rifle damage bonus is 52%. That's from the mods, aces and eights, and the marksman rifle damage, and the marksman rifle gloves. Now down to the defense. This is the armor, max health, health regeneration, pulse resistance, and bleed resistance, which is 15%, which is a small bit of bleed resistance, and that's from the defensive mod, which you guys did see right here. And it's the only mod that's on here, which gives you 15% bleed resistance. And I do have marksman rifle and rifle damage on here if you want to use both of those. Bleed resistance is really nice since you pretty much have no hazard on this build, which you can implement it, don't get me wrong, but this build is mostly for staying in the back and trying to avoid it. But bleed resistance is really nice if people are using something like a hive and you do get clipped by it. Or someone is throwing grenades or seekers, it will prevent you from getting bleed, like, bled to death instantly. That way you have a little bit of resistance to it. But if you don't really care that much about health, you could always change the health out for a 50% hazard protection roll and run it like that, and that might give you a little bit more advantage for people using bleed builds. But that's going to it, guys. Thank you all for watching. I will be uploading a little bit more gameplay in the future on this build. I'm just introducing it to you guys now because some people have been wanting to see this. Also, another thing I want to talk to you guys about, I'm going to be trying to upload a little bit more different content on the channel. This channel is still 90% Division content, but I'm going to be uploading a little bit other things. You guys might see my Welcome to Shipment video later on in the week, or depending on when you're watching this, it might be uploaded the next day or today. But that's going to be my first few times playing on Shipment in Call of Duty Modern Warfare and having a fun time in that. Also, I will be trying to upload some Pavlov VR videos in the future if things go to plan, and if things don't mess up, I will be uploading some of those. But like I said, thank you guys all for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe for more Division 2 content, and as always, I'll catch you guys in the next one.